Hello, and welcome to VPixx's video interview series, Meet the Expert. My name is Lindsay, and today I have with me fellow VPixx Staff Scientist Dr. Jonathan Tong. Jonathan has been a driving force in the design of our multispectral displays. Today, he will share with us a few details about our VPixx Tetracolor projector as a preview of his upcoming satellite talk at the annual meeting of the Vision Science Society in St. Pete's Beach, Florida, in a few weeks' time. Thanks for joining me, Jonathan.
No problem.
So to start, can you tell us what a multispectral display is?
Okay, first I'll start by explaining or describing the typical displays that we have today. The modern display today typically contains three types of primary colors, which are red, green, and blue. And by mixing these three different colors in different proportions, we can display a variety of different colors, right? You might think that you can display all of the colors that we can see just by mixing these three primaries, but that's actually not true. It turns out that by mixing these three colors, we can only recreate less than 50% of all the colors that we can see. And so one of the things that people who develop displays have been looking into is including more than these three typical primaries of red, green, and blue, but adding further primaries like cyan and violet or deep blue. And it turns out that adding these extra primaries allows you to recreate many more different colors that we can actually see, right? So what we say in the industry is that we widen the color gamut. We're increasing the number of possible colors that you can display by having these multiple primaries. And that's what we mean by a multispectral display, is a display that goes beyond the traditional red, green, and blue primaries, but includes additional primaries as well.
So from a vision science perspective, what are some of the applications of a multispectral display?
It's a good question. So aside from, widening the color gamut of a display and being able to display other different colors that a typical RGB display can show, it's actually multiple primaries, more than three primaries are needed for this technique called the method of silent substitution, which is a way to selectively stimulate a class of photoreceptors with a pair of stimuli. So what I mean by a pair of stimuli is two different spectral compositions or lights of different spectral composition that could be created by mixing primaries in different proportions. And this pair of stimuli, a certain pair can be found that can stimulate a particular or modulate the activity of a particular photoreceptor type while not modulating or not changing the activity for all the other receptor types. So, for example, it's recently been discovered that there's this fifth receptor type, right? So besides the three types of cones that are involved in color vision and the rods that are known to be involved in like low light level vision, there's been a fifth type of receptor that has been discovered called the intrinsically photosensitive retinal ganglion cells. We like to call them MELs for short because they actually have a molecule inside them called melanopsin. That's the photosensitive molecule that they contain. But these neurons, since they've only been discovered about 30 years ago or so, there's very little known about what their role is in the visual system. So they've been known to be involved in regulating the circadian rhythms, which is your nervous system's internal clock. And it's also, they've been also known to be involved in regulating the pupillary light reflex, right? And very recently, there's been interest in their possible role in visual perception, right? So if you want to study this particular type of photoreceptor, and you wanted to see how it responds to visual stimuli, you need a way to selectively stimulate this particular group of photoreceptor while not inducing any changes in the activity in the other receptor types, like the cones and the rods that are known to be involved in visual processing.
And so for that, you would need a display with more primaries because it's not possible to create like pairs that do that with a 3 primary display.
Yeah. So it's a general principle that you would need as many primaries as receptor types that you want to control the modulation of, right? So let's say you wanted to specifically target the melanopsin receptors, the MELs, with some contrast. But then you don't want to stimulate any of the other receptors. Since there's 5 receptors, you would need 5 different primaries because you want to control all 5 of those receptor types. So you would need at least 5, but of course you can have more primaries than that. Yeah.
And you're going to talk a little bit about these 5 and 6 primary displays in the talk as well, I think, right?
Exactly, yeah.
So I know you'll cover this in some detail during the satellite, but can you give us a brief snapshot or a brief idea of some of the challenges imposed by building a display like this?
Yeah, so I'll start off by saying that a lot of researchers have actually tried to design their own like multi-primary devices or displays, and usually what they end up doing is they purchase commercially available projectors, for example, and then they swap out some of the primaries with ones that custom ones that they need for their silent substitution application, right? And then usually they'll take multiple projectors with these custom primaries installed, and they'll try to align them spatially and temporally. So, for example, they'll project both projectors onto a screen, and then they'll align the images spatially, and then they'll also need to make sure that they are aligned temporally as well. So they need to synchronize the output of both projectors in order for you to get a single image that's well aligned, right? But that's of course very challenging because you need to align them with very, very high precision, both spatially and temporally. So what we've decided to do is rather than going the route of combining the outputs of multiple projectors, is to build a single projector that has the multiple primaries installed within it, right? So, for example, we've designed a 4-color or 4 primary projector called the Tetracolor ProPixx that has red, green, blue, and a yellow primary. And one of the challenges of building a single projector multi-primary system is that you need to modify the control board in order to drive multiple primaries, right? So we're not only just driving 3 now there's a 4th primary that we have to consider. For the frame period, for example, for any given frame, we need to allot some time for showing each primary, right? The red, the green, the blue, and the yellow for the four primary projector. And that's kind of a challenging thing to do. And another thing that's somewhat challenging is that if you want to show imagery, right, you want to project images on the screen, you also would need to modify the way that the imaging chip works. So for a DLP projector, that's what we have is called a digital micromirror device, where each of the pixels in the image that you're showing is controlled by a little tiny microscopic mirror, right? That basically controls how much of each color is being reflected out of the projector and onto the projection screen. So basically, you need a way to control for every single pixel the relative amounts of light intensity for each primary. And so the way you do that is you have to design what's called a sequencer, right? That can take in your image information that has to now include information for the red channel, green channel, blue channel, and a yellow channel if we're talking about 4 primaries. And so we need to incorporate a way that the sequencer can interpret that information and display it with the correct timing as well. So that's, it's a quite a challenge to build such a multispectral display.
Do you have any other details that you'd like to mention about the satellite while we're here?
Yes, actually, I do. So we actually have a guest speaker that will be giving a talk during the satellite presentation. His name is Pablo Barrionuevo, and he's an expert in the method of silent substitution. And he actually used an early version of this Tetracolor ProPixx that I described earlier. And he used it in some studies where he's studying the method of silent, or he's using the method of silent substitution, to study the roles of rods in vision. So if you attend the satellite presentation, you'll get a real world example of a researcher who has used such a multispectral display to do real world research.
That's great.
Yeah.
Jonathan, thanks so much for giving us a preview of the upcoming satellite event. I know you're going to discuss a lot of the topics that we've mentioned here in much more detail during the talk. So Jonathan and our guest researcher, Dr. Berrio-Nuevo, will present at our satellite event, which is called a Multispectral Projector for Advanced Vision Science. That's taking place Saturday, May 18th from 12:45 to 2:15 p.m. in the Banyan and Citrus rooms. Everyone's welcome to attend. There's no pre-registration required. We also have a poster on the VPixx Tetracolor and a demo night booth featuring the VPixx Tetracolor and some interesting light pairs with various spectral compositions for you to see for yourself. And you can check out the links in the video description below for the abstracts and more details about all of those upcoming events. If you're not attending VSS this year, but you would like to know more about the VPixx Tetracolor, send us an email at scientist@vpixx.com, and we can send you some more information as it becomes available. Thanks again, Jonathan, and we'll see you at VSS.
No problem. Thank you. Bye.
Take care.